Hello, this is Dylan McFry, and I'm here to provide a visual walkthrough of the work that I have done with the concept of learner agency. I'm going to begin by reviewing 4 different resources that I uncovered online about the concept of learner agency. The first of the resources I found was a website, gettingsmart.com. Specifically, it involved an article written by Tom Vander Ark, and the title of the article was 10 Tips for Developing Student Agency. A particular quote that stuck out from the article was a quote he was referring to teachers who work in most schools today, and he referred to them by saying that most of them are stuck in an obsolete low agency model that infantilizes teenagers rather than empowering them to own their own learning. I like that quote, one, because the word infantilizes, that is the fanciest way of saying babying I have ever heard, and I look forward to using that in my own vocabulary moving forward. But also from the fact that it is true that a lot of schools present a cookie cutter model in which students are really handled with kid gloves, even all the way up until like senior year of high school, in which everyone is taught the same way, expected to learn the same way, and no students are given the opportunity to take charge of their own learning. It's we all have to learn this one way. I want to do things this way, and thus I, the teacher, being the teacher, all students must learn this way, and so do not deviate from this whatsoever. If you can't do this one certain thing, you're going to fail my class. And I believe that does a disservice to students, especially the more that time passes. Students are becoming more and more independent, and the learning styles, I think, are starting to vary a lot more. So, because of that, I believe that teachers need to teach students in such a way that allows them to learn at their own pace and also to learn in ways that best suit them. What I liked most about this resource is that it provided examples of work that stimulated learner agency in students. And some specific examples it gave were blended learning environments in which students had a choice in how they consumed class content, competency-based learning environments in which students moved somewhat at their own pace, not so slow that it held everyone up, but at the same time they were able to move along and progress in the class based on how well they mastered the previous content. Project-based learning, in which students applied the concepts they're learning into project scenarios rather than just taking multiple choice tests. And finally, work and service learning, in which they take the concepts they learn in class and apply them in real life scenarios. The second resource was from coreeducation.org or coreed.org. What Core Education did was break down learner agency in very easy to understand terms. And while it was very easy to understand, they didn't oversimplify it. So it wasn't broken down and summarized to such a degree that it was not useful. One example that Core Ed brought up was the fact that most schools are now pursuing BYOD programs, or bring your own device. And they gave this as an option for promoting learner agency because it gives students a say in devices that they use and how they deploy them in completing class assignments. And they also listed that while some schools may choose to assign specific devices, other schools may choose to accommodate a range of different devices that students can afford or ones that they already have. The school I work with moved to a one-to-one initiative several years ago, which was one student, one device. So every student has their own device. They were not given a choice. The school bought iPads for everyone, so the students work with their iPads. And while this does eliminate some of the agency aspect, it still allows the students a bit more freedom with how they are able to use them in their classes and also use them to complete assignments. A third resource was IBorg. This website provided an infographic, a very nicely broken down infographic that showed what learner agency looks like not only for students and teachers, and also what it looks like happening real time in the classroom. There was one section titled What's Happening in the Environment. So this shows how a classroom should look and function in this learner agency model. So one example it gave, it states that a classroom should celebrate the process and products of the creative process. And it should also be flexible, which provides options for ways of working depending on student needs or preferences. So the classroom should be arranged in such a way in which students can work at their own pace and work however they see fit. And it also should celebrate how students are doing and also the process by which they go about completing their work. Finally, the last resource number 4, was PYP Resources.com. This broke down the definition of learner agency, which again helps teachers grasp how best to apply it in our own practices, in our own classroom. The best quote I found from this: when students have agency, the relationship between the teacher and students becomes a partnership. I found this to be very important because it is a partnership. Learner agency has to be a partnership between the teacher and the student. They have to work together to help the student succeed at the best level they can. So what I have here to show is a couple of assignments. I have a lesson plan from my current week in biology in which I teach. And I also have an assignment that we've been working on that I believe will do a good job of demonstrating learner agency. First of all, the lesson plan. Now, there's a lot on here, but I'm going to focus on a few different parts of this lesson plan so we don't have to go through every bit of it. So this is my lesson plans for Biology Fall 2020. This is the week of September 21st through September 25th. There are 3 specific learner agency strategies that I've included in my lesson planning throughout the week. There's student self-assessment, there's student goal setting, and finally, growth mindset. And these are all included in a couple of different places. First of all, down here. So for Thursday, we are still covering photosynthesis and cellular respiration. For Wednesday, we took a photosynthesis quiz, or we're going to be taking a photosynthesis quiz, excuse me. So once we have that wrapped up with photosynthesis, we're going to be moving on Thursday to cellular respiration. Now, cellular respiration, well, before we move on to that, the warm-up activity for the day, the students, TSW meaning the students will, are going to complete a self-assessment rating their level of understanding on photosynthesis, which we just took a quiz on and are trying to move on from. So they're going to rate their level of photosynthesis, and they'll determine how ready they are to proceed with new content. So while some students might indicate that they're ready and that in which they can move on to doing our cell respiration reaction paper posters, others may feel they need more work with photosynthesis, in which case they can move backwards and work more with photosynthesis. So there is student self-assessment. We also have student goal setting on Friday. We move on here, the warm-up activity. Students will set goals for the next unit. So not only for cellular respiration, which we're starting now, but also for what's coming next, which most likely will end up being protein synthesis and probably getting into some genetics and cell division. So students need to determine what they want to learn from cellular respiration and our next few units, and how they want to demonstrate mastery of the subject. So as well as growth mindset and goal setting, this also plays into Friday. You see there is a cell project due. Students also have the choice to present this to their classmates for bonus points. So there is one agency aspect they have. They can choose whether or not they want to present it and demonstrate mastery by presenting their information. But the project itself, which we've been working on, actually presents an opportunity for learner agency. They were presented a cells choice board, a project choice board. What they had to do is choose 3 assignments from this board, sort of like a tic-tac-toe board, to complete. They had to complete either a straight line, a vertical line, or a horizontal line, or a diagonal line, sort of like tic-tac-toe. They'll be graded on creativity, correctness, and how much effort and detail they use. And also, it will be an open collaboration between the teacher and the students to determine how best they can demonstrate their own mastery. So they have the ability to set the goal for themselves that they want to make a certain grade. They can then determine how best they want to go about completing this assignment, and also they can even determine how they show mastery at the end. And there you see there's different options. The students can create a 10-question multiple choice quiz. Then they have to have 2 classmates take the quiz. They can write a short story from the point of view of one of the organelles, create a Venn diagram that compares and contrasts prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells, make a crossword puzzle with information, come up with a cell city scenario in which they liken a cell to a city, make flashcards for 15 organelles, draw a cell model, a creative short story or news article about what happens if one of the organelles stop working, or finally make a fake Facebook profile for one of the organelles. This way the students have the choice in completing the assignment in the way that they see fit, and so they're able to show growth, determine how best they're going to show growth. They're going to assess how well they're doing with previous content and whether they are ready to move on. And also they're going to be able to set goals for themselves and proceed with their learning that way. So I hope this was informative. I look forward to working in different opportunities for learner agency because I want to make my classroom an environment where students feel comfortable with taking control of their learning. They can take control of the pace, they can take control of how they access the content, how they use the content, and how they demonstrate mastery. So I hope this was helpful. Thank you so much for watching.